Welcome to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at pitching for FanDuel and DraftKings tonight. Look at the late slate, and there's kind of a lot of different ways you can go, and some really strong names on the hill.
Yeah, definitely a lot of strong names. And I think there is a wide range in terms of the pitchers and pricing. So solid options for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And jumping right into things here, you got the Angels and the Yankees. Jared Weaver versus Nathan Eovaldi. Over under a 9.5 here. Yankees -170 favorites. And obviously with Weaver and how much he struggled this year, expecting a lot of the runs to come from the Yankees side. Eovaldi's pitched pretty well. Going to face a pretty heavily right-handed team. I don't mind him at the 77 price tag on DraftKings as far as GPPs go.
Yeah, definitely a GPP guy. Obviously we've seen pretty recently in most of his starts, he's had some pretty decent upside unless it's against a top offense. So, I mean, on DraftKings, you're probably looking at 24 to 25 points, somewhere around there. I am a little worried about the middle of that lineup for the Angels, and then obviously Gregorio Superstar Pettit at the end there. But other than that, I think he should have a pretty easy time getting through that lineup. So, yeah, I'm okay with that, especially as a cheaper option.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, that 24 mark, 25 DK point mark is kind of where he's been, or he's kind of been below. So it seems to be a little bit more bust with him this season. But against the Angels, I mean, I know they're kind of turned around, but I really don't mind him as kind of a cheap GPP guy.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, I mean, Weaver not really in play at all here.
No, he's just not very good at Major League Baseball. So
next game here, you got Royals and Orioles. Edinson Volquez, Chris Tillman, over under of 8.5. Baltimore -145 favorites. These two offenses in this ballpark, I think this is just kind of a stay away situation on such a full game.
Yeah. I mean, most nights you're not touching Baltimore, and most nights it's kind of, unless it's a really good matchup for the pitcher, you're avoiding the Royals as well. So I think this is just an avoid in general. You're not forced into doing this. It's not a 4-game slate where you kind of have to take a chance, because I think you could take a chance on Chris Tillman if worst came to worst, but I don't see much need to do that unless you're making 20 lineups or so.
Yeah, I think, I mean, 7,600 on DraftKings at a cheaper price tag, 83. So he's right in that Eovaldi range for me. So I think I'd rather kind of just spin to Eovaldi if I was doing that sort of play.
Right.
Next game here, you got the Mets and Pirates. Noah Syndergaard versus Jameson Taillon. And this one's intriguing just because Taylor's making his first start in the majors. I mean, a highly touted prospect. Was drafted number 2 back in 2010, been dealing with injuries since then. He's going to get a bad Mets lineup, and I think I'm curious to see what his ownership's going to be tonight. Just because, one, I mean, there's a little bit of buzz around him. He's pitched well in the minors this season, 2.04, 23.3% K to walk rate. So, I mean, a solid arm. Obviously, a win is highly questionable just because Syndergaard's on the other side of him. But a guy who I can see tossing in a few GPPs against this Mets lineup.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean, for a guy making his first start, he certainly doesn't come at a discount. So I think you have to take that into account as well. We saw Urias in his first start. Obviously, he wasn't facing as bad of an offense as the Mets are, but you get some jitters, and that first start might not go perfectly. So again, I think you mentioned throw him in a GPP or two if you're making some lineups, but other than that, you're not really touching him if you're going cash or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely not a cash game guy. And I mean, Urias was on a pitch count. Obviously, I mean, he was a guy who has struggled a little bit. I mean, as far as the walk rates go, has been, a guy to kind of rely on. But as you mentioned, I mean, he was at more of a discount in comparison to to
Yeah.
tell you here. So I think at 8,900, it's a little steep, but obviously I think you're looking at this Mets lineup. It's pretty weak.
Right.
I kind of don't mind it as far as GPPs go. I think still, it could be different.
No, I agree. And it's not like saying I don't think he has the stuff either. So obviously he does. Syndergaard, I'm not worried about the Pirates against him, you know. Most nights you're kind of like, they're a pretty solid offense, but I don't think you worry too much. Syndergaard's always got that upside, so definitely plug him in, cash arm for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, ERA fit below 2, 56% ground ball rate, 33% strikeout rate. So those are just elite numbers. I mean, for me this season, you asked me who's behind Kershaw as the number 2 guy. It's been Syndergaard. I mean, that's how good he's been.
Oh man, you had a perfect opportunity for your boy Pomeranz to give him a little love.
Hey,
No, I'm
Pomeranz
just
has
kidding.
been good, man, but
Yeah. No,
you know,
I know. He's not Syndergaard level yet, but Pomeranz has been solid. You made me a fan for sure.
yeah, yeah, he's a quality lefty. Next game here, you got the Cardinals and Reds. Jaime Garcia versus Alfredo Simon. Over under 9.5. St. Louis minus 170 favorites. Obviously, the Cardinals'
Oh.
offense is going to be a big part of that. Um, Jaime Garcia is a guy at the price tag on DraftKings. Uh, I mean, intriguing SP2 option at
Mm.
6,700. I mean, there's some reasons to like him. I mean, obviously, it's a bad ballpark, and this Reds team isn't as bad as it seems, but they're not great. And you like Garcia. I mean, his strikeout rate's up from previous years, 22.4%. Um, you're looking at this ballpark, and his 60% ground ball rate, something I kind of feel comfortable using. I think a quality start. I mean, even if he goes maybe 5 or 6 with 2 to 3 earned, 4 or 5 Ks and a win. I mean, that's fine at that price tag.
Yeah, I mean, his last 4 starts haven't been great, but we can't forget like the upside he showed earlier in the season, you know, and even a little bit last year. I mean, he had that 13 strikeout game against the Brewers. He had 8 against the Dodgers, zero earned runs in 3 starts already this year. So, I mean, he hasn't been great of late, but he definitely has tournament upside, you know, especially against, I mean, the Reds are solid in good spots as pretty much, I mean, they're really good in good spots, but they can get shut down. I'm not like afraid of them or anything. So, and I mean, you have the lefty on Votto and Bruce, so that kind of takes out some of the power there. I don't hate this at all, especially with the price. I mean, if he was 8 or 9K, I wouldn't be buying it, but 6,700 on DraftKings, super cheap.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we're looking. I mean, he's 8,100 on FanDuel. It's still not a bad option. And even in that range on FanDuel, I think you can still take some shots with him in GPPs because, one, I mean, he's priced around a Taiwan Walker, a Wei Yin Chen, Doug
Mhm.
Fister. So there's different ways you can kind of look, below that 8,500 mark there on FanDuel.
Right. And obviously on the red side, no thanks. He actually didn't do too bad in his last start there. I thought it was gonna be like 8 earned runs, but it was only 4. So good for him and Coors. He survived the day, but I think we're gonna get back to sort of um getting beat down here by a good Cardinals offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's like Willie Peralta's brother. I mean, they're two of the worst pitchers in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, they're horrible. So fire for Cardinals bats against him for sure.
Hmm.
Next game here, you got Astros and Rangers. Doug Fister versus Yu Darvish, and I mean, I did the pitcher pulse for today, and Yu Darvish could possibly be the highest scoring pitcher on tonight's slate.
All right. So the last slate he was on, I was early to the party, and this is going to be the day that he goes off because I'm looking at this as another good matchup for him. And I'm probably going to have some nice exposure to him as well. But that strikeout rate for the Astros isn't seeming to go away. Darvish is obviously a good arm, a good pitcher. He struggled last start out, but I don't think that's indicative of, what he is as a whole.
No,
Obviously, he has strikeout potential. So I love this matchup.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, you look at the last time out. I mean, you face the Mariners. That's a tough matchup. I mean, they don't strike out quite as much as you
Hmm.
want, and you're kind of looking at, as you mentioned, Houston's strikeout rate, 25% against right-handers this year. You look at Darvish career number in that department, 30%, and yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's known how to pitch in Texas, so you can talk about the bad park factors and the possible upside against Houston. But I mean, this is a guy who double-digit strikeout wise, it's there.
Right.
And I think for the price tag, I mean, he's a significant discount from Syndergaard and Scherzer. Um, I mean, really on both sites. So I think you can kind of look at him as a spin down option. He's going to be popular for sure, but I'm not
Hmm.
necessarily worried about the ownership rate with the possible points per dollar value that he can return.
Yeah, and he got a little beat up last start, but it wasn't like he got shelled. So he actually held his own against a good offense. So I'm not worried about him at all. And 11K is pretty reasonable. So you kind of just hope he gets back on track. But overall, process is good there.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised that they're not bigger favorites. I mean, just minus 136. I would kind of expect it
Yeah.
to be a little bit more. I mean, unless they're expecting a shorter, outing out of Darvish, if they're expecting maybe just him to get knocked around a little bit. But I can't see that
A Doug
happening.
Fister no.
No, no.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't expecting that either, but you never know. Dougie Fister.
Don't do that to me, Russ. Don't do
No,
that to
I'm
me.
just kidding. Yeah, no, that's a total avoid if I've ever seen one. Even I can't do that.
Yeah. Next game here, you got Nationals and White Sox. Max Scherzer versus James Shields. Over under of 8. Washington minus 153 favorites. Um, I mean, the 13-3 price tag of Scherzer on DraftKings. How do you feel about that in comparison to Syndergaard and Darvish?
I don't like it. Um, it makes me uncomfortable. Um, I mean, obviously, you like a guy who can get 20 strikeouts, but I mean, the matchup is good. I'm willing to pay that. I could see I'm okay with him in cash too, but I just rather roll Syndergaard. And then on DraftKings, I like the price down to Darvish. So I think he might not have the same upside, but he has similar upside. Um, I could see Scherzer going off against this White Sox team, though. That's the only thing. So definitely tournament appeal. I think with the other options, he's not going to be that highly owned, and the price. So he's not a bad option, but I'd probably lean others in cash.
Yeah, I agree. I think I can spin down to Syndergaard. I can spin down to a Darvish. Um, look on FanDuel, it's a little bit different. I mean, they're all kind of priced very similarly, so I don't mind kind of moving to Scherzer. Um, and as you mentioned, I mean, I could see him dominating this team as well. You look at this White Sox offense. I mean, last 2 weeks, nearly a 24% strikeout rate, 266 WOBA. They haven't been anything special for most of the season. You're also looking, I mean, Scherzer's given up the long ball quite a bit, 1.77 home runs per 9 this season. And lefties, 388 WOBA allowed. So you look at this lineup, I mean, outside of Adam Eaton, who doesn't carry a ton of power anyway, they don't really have anyone to get him from the left side. So right-handers, 205 WOBA, I think you kind of take that into consideration. And as you mentioned, I mean, Scherzer, 31% strikeout rate this year, so he has
Yeah.
that upside. Even though it hasn't really been a clean year by Scherzer standards.
Yeah, the heart of that lineup is gonna probably get crushed, honestly. Um, Abreu and Frazier against righties, as you mentioned, that Woba for Scherzer. So I think he could definitely rack up a few strikeouts here. Um, Honestly, pretty safe option even for the price. So I think you dance between him, Syndergaard, and Darvish.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As far as those top options above 10K, those are the only three I'm kind of really considering. I can't see myself using a Bumgarner or Carrasco against those two offenses. And even price at 9,400, I'm not really a fan of.
No, I'm with you there.
So, what about James Shields on the other side, making his White Sox debut? I mean, a guy who's been home run prone for the last couple of years, and now he's going into a bad, an even
Yeah.
worse ballpark, and against a national team that's kind of coming around offensively.
Yeah, I'm not touching this one. I mean, it is super cheap, but Daniel Murphy sees blood in the water, I think. So I don't think I'm gonna be touching that one. I just don't think there's a need, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Nationals team. I mean, I'm with you. I think it is kind of an easy fade, just looking at the matchup standpoint in that ballpark. Uh,
Yeah.
but I mean, I may toss him in just because he is super cheap in 1 or 2 GPPs because he
Yeah.
doesn't have to get the
I mean
rich
that's
price.
that's fair because this Nationals team has been super weird this year, in terms of like getting shut down and against like not necessarily good pitchers. Like there was one last week. I don't remember who they were playing, but it was like so weird
But I know he
because
was bad.
he was really bad because I stacked the Nationals in multiple lineups, including in cash, and then I just got a bunch of 0 for 4s and zeros. So, and I mean, that's not the first time that's happened either this year. So, but you do like the lefty on righty for Revere Harper Murphy. So, um, I'm avoiding it, but I can understand trying to be contrarian there.
Yeah, definitely. Next one here, you got the A's and Brewers, Jesse Hahn versus your boy,
Chase, baby.
Chase
Let's
Anderson.
go.
Over under of 9 here. Milwaukee minus 118 favorites. We saw Davies throw a nice start against the A's last night, but I still don't. I'm on a full slate like this. For me, I wasn't on Davies. I'm not going to be on Anderson tonight in a similar spot. I just think both these offenses, I like both sides as far as hitters go.
Chase isn't worried about your analysis. He's just here to smile and bring positive energy to both the DFS slates and the games. I don't think he's worried about what we have to say about him, and I commend him for that. In terms of this slate, I'm not touching him. So
Yeah, I mean
that's how that's
he
going.
brings the positive vibes, but he also brings
Yeah.
positive points to opposing hitters. So hey, if he goes out and throws a quality start, I'm still not going to
I'll
toss for a bad pitcher.
I'll tell you what though. He hasn't been awful this year. Like he's been okay. He's held it down for himself, I think.
No, I
You
mean he's
know?
coming off a good
Like
start against the Phillies. He pitched well against the Cubs a
yeah.
couple starts ago. He's shown some upside.
Yeah. I mean, he's not really a viable DFS option, but I am proud of you, Chase. You've exceeded my expectations for you, and that's all we can ask. So, moving on.
On that other side, though, I mean, Jesse Hahn, I kind of like some of the Brewers' bats there. In that
Yeah.
ballpark, it's still kind of tough to really get behind either guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. And in terms of upside, he's kind of capped, so I'm not really in on that.
Yeah, me either. Marlins and Twins here, Wei and Chen, Ricky Nolasco, over under 9, Miami minus 109 favorites. Chen, kind of an interesting guy because, I mean, you're looking at Conley, what he did last night. I mean, was a relatively higher scorer. I mean, even giving up a couple runs because he had the punch out going. Um, didn't get a win, but you know what? I think Chen's kind of in a similar spot. I mean, obviously not the strikeout rate that Conley has, but still playable. I mean, still sits at an average rate that can be enhanced by this Twins offense that really, I mean, overall they strike out a ton against lefties, 24.8%. They rank 27th in WOBA. I don't mind Chen at GPPs.
I do like Chen and GPPs. He's kind of in that mid range where people are probably gonna spin low or spin higher. So I'm in on that. Especially for tournaments, not for cash, obviously, but tournaments, yes, I'm in on that against a weak strikeout prone Twins offense. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And that Nolasco, I mean, he's a guy who I don't think I've ever even used him once. Like I've used bad pitchers before, but like I mean, there's been times in the past where like you toss someone in because it's like a 3 to 4 game slate, and you're just like, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna throw this guy in, and I don't think I've ever used Alaska in my life.
I have. It doesn't
Oh
go well.
God!
Let me
Oh
tell you.
God!
Yeah, it doesn't go well normally. He actually hasn't been awful. But is tonight the one you want to make your move on an 11 gamer? I don't think so. Like you mentioned, on a 6 gamer, sure. Throw him in there even in a bad matchup. See what happens. Sometimes you just got to see what happens. But
Yeah, I mean, you're
not
right. He has shown some upside this year. I mean, he's got four games where he's posted really quality starts as far as fantasy points produced. I
yeah, I
still
don't
can't
know.
get over the fact that it's Ricky Nolasco. So
And I don't know that this is the slate to do it either, because I think there's going to be some pretty high upside. So, can he get you 20 points on DK? Maybe 30 or 40 on FanDuel, somewhere in there. Maybe best case scenario. But you're not really looking at. I mean, I'm looking at Scherzer. On DK, he might have 35 to 40 fantasy point upside. So that's tough to compete with, even at a pretty reduced price.
yeah, I agree with you. I think if there was a slate where you had a Grinky from last night, if you looked at the top
Yeah.
options last night, I would feel much more comfortable spinning down because one, the upside was a little bit limited for Grinky. Two, I mean, one, you're just kind of getting that next tier down as far as pitchers go tonight or last night. So it would have been a different case. I just kind of don't feel the need to do that. And there's no Coors game for me to pay up for, so it's not like I need to kind of
Right.
dumpster dive down there.
Yeah, and Baumgartner versus the Red Sox, so that kind of takes that out of play too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Moving on to those late games, the 10 o'clock games. Carlos Carrasco, Taiwan Walker, over under 7.5. This game's kind of just a stay away altogether. I mean, these are two above average pitchers. But where they rank as far as in comparison to other pitchers, I don't want to use them. I prefer much more to go with the Darvish and to go with other guys, Syndergaard or spin down to a Chen who's a little bit cheaper. Go that route instead of using guys in this game.
is after the last sort of is Carrasco like a contrarian play here?
For sure, but
I can't see him being high owned at all, and I understand the concerns about facing the Mariners, but is that like a spot where you can be super weird if you're building multiple lineups? Because I'm wondering because as we mentioned, a lot of people are going to be on Darvish, I think, in terms of tournament ownership percentages.
yeah.
You might be able to sneak a 10% Carrasco ownership in there, which it's not a perfect matchup by any means. I mean, you obviously worry about Cano and Seager, but I think there is a little contrarian upside there.
Yeah, there is. I don't mind it. I kind of wish that price tag was cheaper
Yeah, I
because
think
I do think
that's
upside wise. I mean, 10%. I will say 5. Like I don't even see it being over 5%.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I I just think with Darvish being right there, 700 more, you can look at
Hmm.
some guys cheaper that arguably have a similar floor and upside. I think that's going to be the route. So I do think he's going to be overlooked, but it's one of those ones where I feel like even though he's going to be overlooked, I'm still hesitant to kind of pull the trigger on him, just because
Yeah.
I want to get him a few starts back from the injury. He didn't throw 80 pitches last time out. He didn't work past that. So that's also kind of one thing that is something to note.
Yeah, no, that's definitely worth taking into account. It's just Darvish is coming back from an injury too. And I wonder, I mean, am I biasing myself towards Darvish because it's a better matchup? I don't know. So I think that might be an interesting thing to think about. You probably aren't going to do it, but I think that's an interesting way to think about the slate in terms of those pitchers.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean, I think we are kind of leaning towards Darvish, even though we are talking about the downside of an injury for Carrasco there. But I mean, you're also kind of looking. I mean, Darvish has been kind of uber efficient. I mean, he's worked 5+,
Mhm.
in each start. Yeah, he's been below 90 pitches, but still 7 strikeouts in the first one against a good Pirates team that doesn't strike out quite a bit against right-handers. I mean, he's picked up
Yeah.
the win in both starts, so the price tags come up from those prior matches, but I just still feel like even if he goes 5 or 6 innings against this Astros team, I still could
I
see 10
know.
strikeouts. I mean, that's just how he
Yeah.
is.
Right. And I think that kind of makes him exempt from most of the injury stuff. So no, I'm definitely on Darvish. Don't get me wrong. I just think I know from when I first looked over the slate, I just passed right by Carrasco and didn't even think about it. So just something to throw out there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and a Walker on the other hand, I mean, he's been struggling, but we kind of know what he's capable of. So it's kind of like one of those situations. I don't know what you're going to get out of him. He's cheap. He's 6,800. Um, Obviously, he's pitched better at home this year, but still, I'm kind of staying away. I'd rather take a shot at Garcia at a similar price tag, or
Yeah, Garcia is definitely the call in that mid range. But I got a good question for you. Who scores more points tonight? Tejan Walker or Ricky Nolasco? Go.
oh man,
I'm just
that's a
kidding.
oh
There's literally no way to know. That's just a wild group.
oh man, oh man, I'm gonna
I'm going
go.
Nolasco.
I'm gonna go Walker.
Okay.
Oh God.
All right, we got to Men in Black zap that out of our brains real quick.
Yeah, no kidding. On this
Um,
next game here, you got the Rockies and Dodgers. Chris Russell versus Kenta Maeda. 7.5 over under. Dodgers minus 193 favorites. I mean,
mhm.
that's a big number. And Maeda has bounced back with 2 quality starts of late against bad opponents, Atlanta and the Mets. Before that, I mean, he ran to a stretch where he allowed 4 earned in 3 of 4 games, and 4 of 5 games. It depreciated his price tag on both sides. He hasn't been a guy who really works, deep into games outside of that. So I think it's kind of like the upside hasn't quite been there. But at this price tag, I mean, if he can get you a 20, I don't hate it.
Mhm.
You're looking at the Rockies on the road, but uh, I'm still a little bit kind of iffy on him.
Cautious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same way I feel. I've just seen enough starts to where it's like, okay, he's not bad, but there is mini blow up potential. I would describe it as, especially I know the Rockies aren't great away from Coors, but they're not a bad offense, you know. And I know the road splits are bad, but I do still worry about Arenado and Carlos Gonzalez and Trevor Story, even on the road. So, not a perfect matchup, but I guess you don't expect that for where he's priced. I'm okay with him in tournaments. I think he could get you 20 to 25 DK points at a maximum, but other than that, I don't think he needs to be your first option, and I think I like Garcia better in that range.
Yeah, I agree. I think Maeda, he's in play for GPPs. I'm not just all off of him altogether. 8,200 on FanDuel is not a bad single bullet either. And as you mentioned, I mean, on the road, Colorado isn't the same. And hell, I mean, even Maeda in Coors, I mean, he shut them down and had his best outing of the year against them. So you take that in a note. You also take in a note that this is going to be the second time that Colorado sees him. They're going to have a better scouting report. And we've seen that a couple times this season where Maeda's thrown well against the first matchup and then struggled a little bit in the second. So I think overall it is just the GPP and you kind of label it strictly as that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, you just keep it, okay, strictly GPP. If I'm trying to diversify and hedge off some of the guys I have a lot of shares of, I'm not afraid to throw them in one.
Yeah. And on the other side, I mean, Rockies pitchers are rarely in play, and Russell's not for me.
Yeah. Might be an interesting night to pay up for Corey Seager, actually.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at a couple of guys in that Dodgers lineup. I mean, Seager's red hot. Trace Thompson. I mean, you can kind of roll, and
Mhm.
Trace Thompson wants some spotlight too.
Yeah, I know. I know.
He
Okay.
got it last night. He got it.
Yeah. All right. All right. All right.
Last game tonight here, you got Red Sox and Giants, and from an A standpoint, this game is going to be low scoring. You look at David Price, Madison Bumgarner, over under 6.5 here, the lowest on the night. San Francisco just minus 119 favorites. Um,
Hmm.
this is just one. As far as upside goes, you look at these two teams. I mean, the Red Sox are first against left-handed pitching. They don't strike out a ton, below 20%. Giants are 10th. They have an even lower strikeout rate. Price hasn't been that great this year. Um, I still think in that ballpark, it's kind of a perfect storm of just. I don't see a lot of upside out of these guys. I don't see a lot of scoring out of the offenses. It's just kind of like that game is just crossed off my list altogether.
This is going to be a super fun matchup between Bumgarner and that Red Sox offense. I'm not necessarily investing in it for DFS, but if you just want to watch a game, I think that's going to be fascinating because I mean it's like one through 8 now without the DH, but they're all scrappy. They all have power pretty much, and obviously the Red Sox batters I'm speaking about, and Bumgarner is a great pitcher. So I'll be very interested in watching this game tonight. So I don't know about that. And then Giants, I'm just not afraid of David Price. There's a lot of lefties in their lineup, so you kind of don't like that either. But maybe throw a Matt Duffy in there. I'm just not afraid of Price right now, I guess.
So Pence is already out. Posey, who scratched yesterday,
Yeah.
is there a possibility that you can see using a $9,400 David Price on DK? If there's, I mean, no Pence already. If Posey's out again,
No Pence and no Posey. That pretty much takes a lot of the ammo out of the Giants lineup. And then it's like all lefty on lefty, you know?
it is. So I mean, I think that is something that maybe you take a look at that offense, that lineup when it comes out. And
Yeah.
Price is going to be low owned. I mean, I don't see him being relatively
Mm,
over 8% in GPPs.
that's tough to guess his ownership because the last few times I kind of expected it to be lower because of sort of he hasn't been pitching that well, but it seems like people are still going back to him. Um, it'll be very interesting to see his ownership tonight, but I have a feeling it might still be in that 10 to 15%, somewhere around there, maybe even a little higher. People are having a tough time giving up on him, which is kind of unfortunate tonight.
Yeah, and I think you kind of look at that Giants factor. I mean, they've kind of lowered some ownership, but I think maybe if people are on similar thinking of, hey, that lineup doesn't have Posey or Pence in it, you're talking about,
Yeah.
a lot of guys that are lefty on lefty, the guys from the right side. It's just really, I mean, Duffy in that front five there. So if that's the case, I could see using him in a GPP.
Now, if you're telling me that I'm getting less than 10%, I'm in. I'm absolutely in because, I mean, Price still has that upside. I'm not worried about that. I think eventually, especially he's not in Fenway, so out on the West Coast should be lower scoring in general. And he gets a good matchup. So, yeah, I'm in on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's going to wrap things up here with the pitcher nail down. Be sure to check out DailyFantasyCafe.com for all our great tools and content.